we're ready for the last part of this series, and we're talking about standard form now. So on the third column of your note sheet, you should be writing the standard form for the equation of a line, which is ax plus by equals c. And I would like you to include that a needs to be positive or greater than 0, and that a, b, and c must be integers. If that's not the case, then our equation isn't really in standard form. Even if it looks kind of like the right order, we have to keep these stipulations for a, b, and c. Okay, I've given an example off to the right, and you might notice that the x-intercept is -3, and the y-intercept is +2. And that's because if you plug these numbers in for x and y, the equation will actually be true. You can do it also for the 0 and the 2. So if you plug in a 0 for x and a 2 for y, then you'll get a true equation. Okay, so very interesting. So I'm going to show you maybe in a little easier way than what you might have seen before about how to graph an equation in standard form. We don't really think much about slope when we have standard form. Standard form isn't set up easily for us to find the slope. So if you want an equation that tells you what the slope is automatically, then maybe use one of the other two forms we talked about. This formula, or this form for equation of a line, is used for finding the x and y intercepts. So if you want to find the x-intercept, you need to set your y equal to 0. So I'm going to do that. Now, if you think about it, for every x-intercept in the whole world, the y value is 0. So that's why we're plugging in 0 for y. Okay, so I'm plugging in 0 here, and I get 5 times 0 is 0. I'll go ahead and show all of my steps. So then 2x would equal -10. And if I divide both sides by 2, then I get that x equals -5. And that is my y-intercept. I'm sorry, my x-intercept. So I'm going to put a point there for my x-intercept. And now I'm going to find my y-intercept by doing the opposite. I'm going to set x equal to 0. So using that green equation up at the top, I'm putting in 0 for x. And I'll get 0 for 2 times 0 plus 5y equals -10. And 5y then will equal -10. And if I divide both sides by 5, then I'm left with y equals -2. So I'm going to plot my y-intercept there at -2. And that's enough for graphing the line. You really only need 2 points. So at this point, we can draw our line. Should go through my 2 points. It didn't quite make it. But that's it. So finding the x and y-intercepts is all you really need to do. And it's not that bad once you plug in 0 for the other variable. Okay, so let's do another one here. We're finding the x-intercept first. You can find the y-intercept first if you'd like. But I'm going to plug in y, or 0 for y. Okay, so if I do that, you notice that that second term, the y term, will always kind of become 0 because anything times 0 is 0. So I don't really even have to worry about it. I can just kind of forget about it, and I have 5x equals -15. And if I divide both sides by 5, then I'm left with -15 divided by 5, which is -3. And I have a point for x, for the x-intercept at -3, 0. So you notice y was 0, x was -3. And then lastly, we'll do our y-intercept. I kind of switched colors here, but that's okay. So I'm going to plug in x equals 0. So using that same equation, plug in 0 for x. But this time I'm looking for the y value. I'm solving for y. Don't really have anything there for 5 times 0. So I've got -3y equals -15. Divide both sides by -3. And I'm left with y equals -15 divided by -3, which is a +5. So we'll go ahead and put a point there on the on the y-axis. And then draw a line through those 2 points. And that is it. Now at this point, it would be easy to find the slope. You could start at your pink point and you could go over and say, well, if I really, really wanted to know the slope, then I could see that I'm going right 3 and up 5, and so my slope value would be a positive 5 over a positive 3 because that's rise over run. If you had started at the blue point, then you would be going down 5, left 3, which still gives you a positive 5 over a positive 3 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So you can still find the slope if you have standard form, but you might want to graph it. You might want to solve the equation for y so that it ends up being in slope-intercept form. But either way, you can figure out the slope. You don't have to memorize a formula to do that. Okay, so lastly, you're going to go ahead and finish question 5 on your quiz on join.quizzes.com. Still using that same game code, of course. And at this point, you are done with this week's session. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to contact me at any time.